Okay, let's see. Can you all see that? All right. Well, thank you all for letting me join you tonight. My name is Lauren Marsiglia, and I'm the Interim Advanced Planning Division Manager with the City of Culver City. And let's see. Oh, okay. And so tonight I just wanted to discuss one of the main projects that the city is working on right now. It's the general plan update. So I just wanted to give an overview of what is a general plan, why it's updated, what Culver City's general plan update process is, some of the community feedback we've heard so far, and different ways to stay involved. Before I go into the presentation, I kind of wanted to get to know you all a little bit. So I have a poll prepared. It's if you go to www.menti.com, you can enter this. This screen should pop up. It should look a little bit like what you see on the right. And if you could enter the code 14373557, it'll prompt you with a few questions. You can also take out your phone and scan this QR code, and that should also display the survey for you. And I'm actually going to switch screens right now to display the poll. Just give me a second. Okay. Looks like some of you are already starting to respond. That's great. Okay, so I just wanted to start off with a warm-up question, just in case any of you haven't used Mentimeter before. So this will just be a test question as you get familiar with the app. And this is an optional survey. You don't have to participate if you don't want to, but I just wanted to, see who's involved in the Democratic Club. So the first question is, have you ever applied to appear on Jeopardy? And the first option is, what is yes, what is no, and what is yes, and I was a contestant. So if I see 8 people have responded, and so far no one has applied. I'll give you all a couple, maybe like another few seconds. Okay, I think we can move on. So the next question is, have you ever participated in a previous general plan event? And you can select all that apply. So I have a few options here of previous events we've held. If you've been a GPAC member or attended an event or a TAC event, and that's Technical Advisory Committee. We've also had some online surveys and a couple workshops listed there. So far, I see a pretty good spread. Some of these events we've had before COVID and some were after, so that might affect how many people were able to participate. I think we can move on. So the next question is, what gender do you identify with? And you can select all that apply. Thank you. The next question is, how old are you? And this is a safe space, so I won't judge anyone. Okay, it's a pretty good mix so far. And the next question is, what best describes your household income level? And these are also anonymous. Okay, I think that's about everyone. Just a couple more questions. This one is also optional, and it's with which race or ethnic group do you most identify? And you can select multiple options. Okay, I think about 9 people have been participating, so we can move on. And then what best describes your living situation? So do you live in Culver City and own a home, or are you a renter? Do you own residential property in Culver City? Okay, oh, thank you. We'll move on. And then if you know your neighborhood, if you could, I know the font is really small, but if you could let me know which neighborhood you're coming from, that would be helpful to see. I'll give you another few seconds because I know the font is so small. Okay, I think that's everyone. And then how many years have you lived in Culver City? Less than a year, 6 to 10 years, 40 plus years? Thanks. And those were all the questions. So I'll switch back over to my presentation. And thank you for taking that. That's something that we've been trying to do throughout the general plan update process, is to understand who's participating in the project, to see if there are any gaps in our engagement efforts, and also just get an understanding of when we're getting community feedback, who we're hearing from.
Put yourself on mute on ours.
Oh, on yours. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do it on theirs. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
I think.
And so
we were naming places to go. I'm thinking of bigger places like Target, like Ralph's.
See, I might be able to, I don't know if I'll be able to mute someone.
what about
If you want to interrupt me, feel free to. I just muted everyone just for the sake of the presentation. So it looks like a lot of you have been engaging with the general plan update process, and I just wanted to give a little bit more background information for those of you who haven't. This is the general plan update. It's the 20 to 25 year vision for the city, and it's something that the state requires every city and county to have. And what's exciting about Culver City's general plan update is that it's the first time that the city is comprehensively updating its general plan. So it gives us this unique opportunity to come together and plan an equitable future for the community. The general plan update, or GPU, it also gives us the opportunity to set a roadmap to make Culver City the best it can be for residents, workers, and visitors. And ultimately, our goal is to make sure that Culver City remains and is a place where everyone can thrive. And in order to create that future that welcomes and serves everyone, we want to make sure that everyone's involved in the process. And so this is an exciting time to have community-wide conversations about how can we enhance what we love about Culver City and come up with solutions to challenges that we face, and also set our vision for the future. So it's been really important for us to engage everyone and create these spaces where people can share their perspectives and their unique stories so that we can help plan a vibrant Culver City today, or for everyone.
Lauren?
Yes.
Hi, this is Rebecca Rona. I'm chair of the Equity and Human Relations Advisory Committee here in the city.
Hi.
Hi. I'm wondering what kind of outreach, if any, has been done to the community of unhoused people.
Oh, and so I'll get to that later. But for the unhoused population specifically, we have coordinated with the Committee on Housing and Homelessness with the City of Culver City, and gotten their perspectives a few times throughout the process. And I'm meeting with them again next week to, I met with them early on when we released the draft of the housing element to get some other recommendations and input on that document. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then I'm going to meet with them again on Tuesday to talk about parking and how that affects affordable housing solutions in Culver City. So that's been our main form of engagement. And we also held a speaker series event before or around when we first launched the general plan update process. The speaker series was covered different topics related to the general plan. And so we invited speakers who were experts or had experience in those topics. And one of the topics that we had was on housing and homelessness. So we had a couple members of the community who had experienced homelessness on the panel to share their thoughts on their vision for Culver City and what some solutions can be for that population. And then we also had a few experts who are working on housing solutions who do outreach to that population. And they were there to share their thoughts and suggestions for us to consider. So those are a few ways that we've conducted outreach with that population.
I won't take up a lot of time now. I'm hoping to speak with you later about this.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you.
So next slide. Sorry, I'm still, okay, here we go. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. The purpose of the general plan is it's a long-term policy document that guides future actions for Culver City. So this affects policies and then also land use development. And it acts kind of as the city's constitution. It sets our vision and direction on everything from transportation to housing and parks and open space and arts and culture. So it'll affect how Culver City looks over the next 25 years. And another goal for the general plan is to bring the community together to develop a shared vision for the future and enhance community strengths and address different topics of concern. And so this is something that the California law requires that every city and county have and maintain. And so we need to update it every few years to make sure that it's updated. As we're embarking on this process, we want to build on existing documents and plans that the community has worked on. We recognize that a lot of those projects required a lot of community engagement and input, and that intermediate, goals for the future. So these are just a few documents that we've referred to throughout the process. And we've also been coordinating very closely with other city departments to learn about the work that they've done, things that they're working on, to make sure that we're consistent with the work that we've done in the past, and with the work that is coming out pretty soon. So we are trying to build on existing community efforts. And just to give an overview of some of the topics that the general plan covers, the state requires that we cover the top topics, and those are land use, circulation or transportation, housing, conservation, open space, noise, safety, and environmental justice. But they also give cities and jurisdictions some flexibility and some other topics that they can address if they choose to. And so the Culver City General Plan update will go beyond the state's requirements and also touch on the topics listed below. So that includes new mobility, smart cities, reimagining public safety. We were involved with the public safety survey that the community responded to. And then also go into infrastructure and public facilities, and a few other topics noted here. This has been, as you can imagine, a very engaging and thoughtful process. It's spanned several years now. Even before the dates shown here, there was some pre-engagement starting in 2017 to prepare for the general plan update. But once the project officially kicked off in 2019, and it started with this existing conditions phase, and this was the time for our consultants and city team to look into what are some existing policies and conditions in Culver City as of 2019. And this is just a way for us to understand where Culver City is now, and it serves as a baseline from which we can compare ourselves over the next 25 years. So are we making progress towards the goals that we set through 2045? And in that process, we drafted some reports for the community to review that summarizes these existing conditions. And some of the topics include transportation, economic development, arts and culture, and these reports are all available online if you'd like to take a look at those. The next phase took place between fall of 2020 and winter of 2021, and this was involved a lot of community engagement to understand what the community's vision and goals were for the future, and that helped us lead into the next phase of the project, which was taking what we heard from the community and trying to draft some alternatives to Culver City's land use and mobility transportation plans. And so we worked on that between the winter and spring of 2021. And now we're in this fourth phase of the project. It's the policy and plan development, where we're taking everything that we've heard from the community and the feedback that we got on the different plan alternatives, and actually starting to draft some policies that we're planning on presenting to the community in the next week. And then from there, we'll start to draft the actual plan. And once we start drafting the plan, then we'll move into the review and adoption with City Council. So as I mentioned earlier, engaging the community has been crucial throughout the general plan update process. There are many reasons why that's been important, and one is just to make sure that this is a plan for the community and they feel that it represents their goals and vision. And through that, we've been working on making it an inclusive and responsive process. We've been polling and surveying people who've been engaging in the process to make sure that we have broad demographic and then also geographic representation. So making sure that we're hearing from people in different neighborhoods, people of different demographic backgrounds. And it's also helped make sure that we've been trying to engage the community at key points in the process. And also just make sure that it's an engaging process for people of all ages, abilities, backgrounds to participate in. Just some of the engagement activities that we've held to date, we've had different online workshops. Some of these, after COVID, we had to shift a lot of our engagement online. So a few of these workshops were online. We had a community visioning festival workshop where we had about 150 participants join us. We've had a few online surveys. The public safety survey, we had about 2,500 participants. We've had 19 general plan advisory committee meetings.
Sort of debate.
They're also known as the GPAC, and they've been really helpful from the start. So since September 2019, we've been meeting with them on a regular basis to get their feedback on the general plan. We also have technical advisory committees. They're also called TACs, and they focus on specific topics in the general plan. So we've held about 20 meetings with the different groups. The different groups include one on housing, one on policing and public safety. We have a transportation and mobility group as well. And then we've also had several meetings with City Council and Planning Commission to get their feedback on important topics throughout the project. Early on, we went through the community visioning process with through a few events and online surveys. And this is the survey or the vision that the community ultimately came up with. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a second to read this. And so the vision is: Culver City in 2045 continues to be a vibrant, unique, and diverse community with a strong social and economic fabric stitched together by its arts and cultural assets, creative enterprises, high quality services, and inclusiveness. It is a progressive and bold city leading the region to address complex challenges in housing, transportation, public health, public safety, and the environment. Its residents, workers, businesses, and visitors enjoy smart and modern infrastructure and fiscal sustainability, stewarded by a commitment to equitable planning for the future generations that will inherit Culver City as a home, as their neighbor, or as a cultural and economic destination. We also developed some core values that were infusing throughout the general plan document. And those values are innovation and creativity, sustainability, equity and inclusion, and a compassionate community. And these are values that we collaboratively developed throughout our community engagement process. The general plan update is also informed by these guiding principles. So being a leader in model city, being committed to diversity in housing, looking at community health, and having a diversified and circular economy. These are just a few of the main themes that we've heard from the community throughout our engagement. So we've heard a lot about wanting to stay true to Culver City's art and cultural identity, making sure that we address traffic and parking issues, focusing on Ballona Creek as a resource, building affordable housing, we've heard about, diverse perspectives on all these topics. And then I wanted to just describe a few of the upcoming opportunities to get engaged in the general plan update. So next week, we're having a policy frameworks virtual open house. And the policy framework, it goes over the different topics that will be covered in the general plan. So we have policy frameworks. There's one on smart cities. We'll have one on parks and open space, noise, conservation, and each of these frameworks just outlines the different goals, outcomes, and then different policies and actions to achieve those goals. And it also will describe the different metrics we'll use to measure our progress towards meeting those outcomes. And so this event, it'll be on Thursday, November 18th from 6:30 to 8:30, and it'll be held through Zoom. And if you can attend, we also have the policy frameworks listed online. If you go to that link listed below, it'll give you an overview of the policy frameworks and then also include the links to the different documents. And it'll give you a chance to add your comments between now and November 30th. So this just goes over a few of the other policy frameworks that I described earlier. A few other ones I didn't get a chance to mention are the health and environmental justice framework. There's one on parks and recreation, and also on infrastructure. And the feedback that we get from the community on these policy frameworks will inform what ultimately goes in the general plan update. So these are kind of like the outlines for the different chapters of the plan. So online, if you're interested in taking a look at these and filling them out, this is what the page looks like. And it gives you an overview of what we learned in the different frameworks and where we want to be in the future. And the link again is down at the bottom of the screen. And the way that we're engaging feedback on these documents is through this, it's a platform called Conveo, and it allows you to, click, you can scroll through the file and then click wherever you want to add a comment, and then you're able to add your comment there. So you can add your name, your email, and your comments. And then there's also a way for you to interact with other commenters. So if you like someone's comment, you can give it an upvote. You can also downvote any comments that you disagree with, and then respond to the other commenters. So it's kind of an online forum for you to interact with your neighbors. And this is just, if you look at the top of the button, this window, it'll have these different buttons for you to navigate it, so you can zoom in and out. There's a way to search for different words, and you can also turn the pages. So after that workshop, we also have a few meetings coming up with Planning Commission and City Council, and this is to work on the housing element adoption. So we drafted the housing element and posted that online for public comments for a couple months. And then we also submitted a draft to the state as the Department of Housing and Community Development. And so they just sent us their comments yesterday. And between now and November 30th, we'll be responding to the comments that we received from the state and then also from the community to make our edits to the housing element, and then we'll present that to Planning Commission on November 30th. And this will just be an update meeting to explain what we've heard from everyone and what changes we made to the housing element. We'll also present the environmental documentation that we completed for the housing element. The comment period for that ended on Monday. So the Planning Commission will review that as well. And after we hear from Planning Commission, we'll also do the same update meeting to City Council on December 10th. And that'll just be another opportunity for, it'll be a quick turnaround, but we will be able to incorporate a few of the comments that we heard from Planning Commission and explain that to City Council. And we're still trying to finalize the date, but in the first week of January, we'll go back to Planning Commission to get their recommendation to City Council on adopting the housing element. And on January 24th, that's when we'll present the final draft of the housing element and the environmental documents and get their direction on adoption. And that's it for me. I do want to give you time to ask any questions or provide any comments that you have on the general plan update. And if you want to contact me in the future, my contact information is on the screen right now. So thank you all. And I'll be here for the next few minutes to answer your questions.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. So yeah, raise your Zoom hand if you have a question. There are already a couple in the chat. So Eric Rudin, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, go right ahead.
Hi, Ms. Marsiglia. Thank you for your efforts and for your presentation. I actually have two questions after I posted that one. I had a second. The comments from the state, are those viewable to us as the public?
Yes. And we just haven't we just received the letter yesterday. And so it's not online yet, but we'll share it with Planning Commission on the November 30th. So it'll be included in those meeting materials.
Okay. Will it be somewhere on the Culver City website, on the city's website at all, for those of us that can't make the meeting?
It'll be available online. Okay. Whenever we post materials for these public meetings, it'll be searchable on the website.
Cool, thank you. And then my question that I posted in the chat briefly was, and I apologize if this is in the documentation regarding the housing element. I didn't see anything regarding the addressing of the added influx of cars and people into our city that I'm sure we can expect as it pertains to accessibility for the elderly in our community and for people with disabilities. Are there going to be more, for instance, I put in parentheses, are there going to be more blue parking spots, parking structure? Is there anything being planned so, you know, people who can't walk very far will be able to access our city? Yeah,
and that's something that we'll be discussing next week with the community. And it's also, if you'd like to add those suggestions to the framework online related to mobility, those are policies that we are working on, is making sure that as we're building or accommodating more housing, that we're ensuring that people can move around and through Culver City. And so we are considering those solutions.
Thank you. And my daughter wants to say hi, so sorry about that.
Okay, hello.
Thank you again, I appreciate it.
I'm just going to go ahead and ask Disa Lindgren's question because it's such a short one. December 10th is a Friday. Is there going to be a city council meeting then? I think that was when the dates you showed.
Yes, this will be a special meeting. It was kind of difficult with trying to meet state guidelines and then also working around the holidays, and so that was the date that City Council selected for their update meeting.
Is that in the day or at night?
It'll be at 7 p.m.
Okay. Danny Young.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for coming out tonight and making this presentation. This is kind of like I guess maybe a simple question, but I'm not really familiar with this process. Besides what you just walked us through. So the general plan, like how much of the actual policy is like, are we obligated to adhere to, or like how much of it, in what way is it like legal or enforceable going forward? Like, do we as a city need to like refer back to it when we make new policy decisions, or you know what I mean? Like, what is this just like a statement of purpose sort of a thing? And then we just sort of, it's just like, these are the things that we feel good about doing, but then what we actually do in the next 20 years is may or may not have anything to do with it. Can you just help me understand, like, you know, in what way is this enforceable, I guess?
No, it's an important question. Part of when we're drafting the general plan update, there will be a section on implementation. So it'll outline what are some of the milestones that we need to achieve to carry out these policies and outcomes. And so that implementation plan will affect everything covered in the general plan update. But there will also be some other concrete ways that we implemented. So for land use and housing, the change or the new directions that we go in for Culver City will affect our zoning code. So the zoning code actually outlines the development standards that we'll follow to build out in the future. So it'll affect square footage of the structures, and then parking requirements, and then also just the height limitations for buildings. And so after adopting the general plan in the fall of 2022, we'll start the process to comprehensively update the zoning code to make sure that it aligns with what the general plan sets out. And all the goals that we set throughout the general plan will affect what other departments do. So we're working really closely with the transportation and public works departments to make sure that the future projects that we're working on through those departments align with the goals that we set through the general plan update. So those are a few ways that we'll be enforcing the general plan.
So Brian Sanders, then Rebecca Ronatello.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, question for you. If I wanted to ask it in this forum as well, and I know we have there's some ongoing email stuff. I'm just trying to understand a little bit more, because where I last left things with the general plan and the housing element with regards to the environmental data was that the only thing that was officially submitted was data that was generated by the software program Urban Footprint, and that it wasn't actually any data that comes from measuring greenhouse gas in Culver City. And so my concern with that, of course, is that we built the housing element that discusses that R1 would be a greater contributor to greenhouse gas than upzoning all of R1. However, that mathematical equation was the end result was derived from data that comes from Urban Footprint, which is a software program, right, with the modeling data that doesn't actually display the actual data. So I'm just really, I think a lot of people are just kind of ignoring this, and I don't really get it. I don't know why we're not being given the actual numbers. And so I guess I'm concerned, especially since now the housing element's already been submitted, general plans been, in motion for so long to be updated, and then these deadlines are coming up and the holidays are right around the corner, and like, will we ever actually see the raw real data of anything that, whatever it is that you're measuring that adds up to greenhouse gas, with electricity and water use? What else do you measure? I mean, are you measuring sewage? Well, I don't know. What else gets measured that should be part of the environmental impact report? And when can we see the actual numbers? And will they be part of the housing element? Or are we only going to use software generated data? That's my very long but simple question.
No, thank you for your question. I saw the emails or the exchange that you had with Ashley Hefner Huang, and I just met with our environmental consultants today, and so we are actively working to set up a meeting with you and city staff to address your questions. I'll try to answer as much of them as I can tonight. So I just wanted to clarify that the environmental document was based off of the existing conditions reports that I described earlier. So it wasn't based on urban footprint data. It was, if you go online on pictureculvercity.com, on our resources page, we list out the existing conditions reports there. And we have 2 reports on greenhouse gas emissions and describe the methodology and the data collection that was used to inform that report. And so this is the data that our environmental consultants referenced for their environmental analysis. And so all of this, it wasn't based off of urban footprint or any data that the city collected. It was using the protocols that are set by the state and federal government. So we list some of those sources there. And then we also, at the end of the report, we include the raw data that you can refer to. And so if you have any, at least for the greenhouse gas emissions, if you have any questions on the raw data, you can let me know. Like the sources came from the California Air Resources Board, and also the Golden State Water goes over some of the water data that we referred to. So those are the data sources that we referenced for the environmental document.
Great. Rebecca Rona Tuttle, then.
Sorry, can I just follow up on that? And I'll forward you the emails from Ashley, unless you've already seen them, but because she sent me to that website and sent me some attachments, but then she also told me that the information came from urban footprint. So what is it what in general plan or housing element or both has data that comes from that software program? Do you know?
Yes. So I read that email, but if you can forward it to me as well, I can take a look at it. And I know that we're short on time, so I don't want to take away from other people's questions, but just the urban footprint data was used to inform the land and mobility alternatives analysis. So that was a separate part of the project. So separate from the housing element process. But the housing element analysis was based off of the existing conditions reports. And I'll follow up with your email so we can chat more offline. But these are important questions, and I'm glad that you asked. The next question, or you said
Go
that.
ahead, Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there. My question is based on guesses and assumptions, not real data. Given that it's planned that there will be much, much more housing in our city, I am guessing that we will have many more students than we have right now. And my question is whether in all of this planning, there has been any consideration of where new schools might be built.
That is something that I'm sorry, I have a dog in the house and they're getting excited, so there might be some barking. But we are, I'd have to talk to current planning about this more, but usually when there's development or new development, they need to pay school fees. And this is, it helps to fund school infrastructure to ensure that the new development that there's sufficient educational infrastructure to accommodate the new growth in the community.
But I'm asking specifically about whether anyone involved in this process has gone as far as to determine whether additional schools will be needed.
That's something that it's part of the ongoing development process. So as the community develops, it contributes to the school fees to make sure that we have enough schools to or space in the education system to accommodate the new growth. So it's something that we are considering in the process. Is do we have the school infrastructure to accommodate the growth?
Okay, thank you.
Suzanne, go ahead. Suzanne, are you there?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so as always, my questions are about the environment. So again, tell us where the data is, if any, on the current quality and quantity of our water supply and the quality of our air supply and the current mobility impacts per square mile. And with that as a base, then an evaluation and comparison regarding environmental impacts of air quality and use of green space of adding 4 units per lot per square mile, per residential lot per square mile. And then compare that to, again, using the same things that become the base on the air quality and quantity, sewer costs, and water. You know, all the things that have sustainability impacts per square mile of building on rooftops and along traffic corridors. For instance, how much green space gets used per square feet of residential lots, how much per, using building up instead of out, and also how many more trees either get added or removed per building at whatever site. Is there a way that we can get that data, Ms. Marsiglia?
Yes, so all the data that the environmental documents were based on are in the existing conditions reports that are on the city's or the project's website. So it's pictureculvercity.com/resources. And there's a heading called existing conditions reports. And those are listed by topic. And so all the data that our environmental consultants use for their analysis is listed here.
Okay, I'm going to email you tomorrow to get the link. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if not, the data that you have in the report is actually hard data of Culver City itself, or is it theoretical data, or is it something gotten from algorithms that are used, to theoretically measure, these issues that I brought up?
This data is all hard data. And if you have any questions after reviewing the documents on the different data sources, you can, I'd be happy to address those through a follow-up email.
Yeah, and I must publicly state that I have always found you very helpful over these months, Lauren, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've appreciated working with you throughout this process.
Thank you. Thank you. I yield my time. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, well, does anyone else have a question for Lauren?
If I can throw one more question in, I was very touched by your article, Jeff, on the Chelsea, Culver City becoming the new Chelsea. Does the new proposals, because I know our mayor had asked the option 3 be the one vetted, uh, you know, how would that, given that we're having so much high tech coming in, with all the new jobs, and the cost of buying and building is going to be way up there. Are you factoring in, or how is it, because there's one thing to have a noble and theoretical proposal, and it's another to see what happens in, hard dollars of who buys what and what they build. Is there any way of keeping the diversity and inclusion we already have, and to really factor in, which is what drives me on this issue, as I put myself in the shoes of minimum wage earners who can't even afford to pay rent? How do we address that? I know Rebecca Tuttle gave a magnificent proposal a couple of weeks ago, and I want to publicly thank you, Rebecca, of taking where we had the ice rink and now it's Harbor Freight. And what would happen if we did build, moderate and lower income housing, so we have the diversity rather than segregating people, and restore the rink and have rent help pay. I mean, it's so beautifully efficient. I hope she can share it again. Like, are we thinking creatively? Because with the climate impact changing, with the more and more people dropping into homelessness and poverty because of loss of jobs, or they don't have the skill set for all the IT, how and where are we creating that, to use the things Jeff wrote about, how do we address that? We have some diversity already, making it even more so rather than losing it and becoming gentrified by income.
I'm so sorry. I didn't catch all of your question. It sounds like you're concerned about gentrification and how we can make sure that we're accommodating people of all incomes throughout the community with housing.
Yes, Lauren, because it's one thing to say we theoretically would like to have land trusts and other really noble proposals, but that's one thing to say. But if a lot is up for sale, and our lots now are in the high 1.4567 million. Some of the houses are over 2 million. I saw one recently for almost 3 million. And we're having all of these jobs with all these big, corporations. We've become the IT, or whatever we want to call it, media center, of people earning at least 100,000 or more. And something goes up for sale, who's going to have the money to buy it, scoop it up right away? And then, where we're trying so hard to keep and create diversity, if the people with the money are the ones who have the money and buy these, and I don't want McMansions, but they either do McMansion or they turn it into a developer, let's say, turns it into a 4-unit thing, which they can do by splitting the lots, whatever, SB9, and they end up selling them for about a million each. How does that help us sustain the diversity? That's the other, my two big issues are the sustainability and the economics of giving everybody a fair chance. And I don't know if there's anything worked out in our plan for the next 25 years that creates the cushion, the pillow, the umbrella, whatever we want to call it, so we don't see more and more people fall into poverty because we haven't built in that safety net. That's the term. Has any of that been factored into the general plan?
Yeah, those are really important questions. So I'm pulling up the draft housing element now. It lists a few of the different housing programs and policies that we want to implement to ensure that we're affirmatively furthering fair housing. That's one of the state's requirements, is making sure that we are providing housing opportunities for people of different income levels, and that we're equitably distributing that housing throughout the community so that people have opportunities to they have choices on where they can live, and that they aren't restricted by income. And so we do have some policies and programs in our draft housing element to make sure that we are achieving that goal. And then also some displacement programs or anti-displacement programs to make sure that those, that people aren't displaced from their homes if property values increase. And I know we're short on time, and I do want to address your questions. So if you want to, you can email me after this and follow up with me, and I'll try to answer the rest of any parts of your questions that I didn't adequately address.
I very much appreciate that, and I will follow up. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, I think we're going to wrap here. Thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. I should disclose, that I've been on to GPAC for a couple of months. I was late minute addition, and our club vice president, Freddie Puza, has been on from the get-go. And too many of our members whose names I don't remember right now have been involved in the process, and it's been really just fascinating. And I am sure there'll be a great result. I also feel like I would be remiss to not note, and this may be too political for Lauren, so cover your ears, that the greatest anti-displacement effort has been the city's implementation of rent control and renter protections, which many members of this club were instrumental in passing. So if we want to further prevent displacement of our lower income residents and development of exclusively high-end properties, et cetera, we need to fight for stronger renter protections, the repeal of Costa-Hawkins, and the repeal of the Ellis Act. But anyway, this is not about me, for change. So thank you again so much for you're welcome to hang out for the business meeting, but I don't know how interesting that's going to be for you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat in case you missed it. And then I didn't have a chance to read all the questions in the chat, so I'm going to take a copy of this and
Great.
and make sure that if I didn't address it in the presentation, or that I'll make sure that we capture it for the general plan public comments. So thank you all.
Thanks so much. Have a great night. Say hi to your dog for me.
Okay.
Big fan of dogs. So now I'll call the meeting to order. And first item is the approval of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to see the agenda because
Want to turn off the recording?
oh, an excellent idea. Thank you, Pete.